Good evening, everybody. We're gonna talk about lipid metabolism. So, so lipid metabolism in general, it's basically the higher yield version of energy harvest. No, so the lipids that we use for kaning ATP production is the ones that we get from our diet. No? So the entire process of utilizing your lipids, no, your fatty acids, to become oxygen is what we call your beta oxidation. The problem with beta oxidation is, from the name itself, oxidation, meaning you need to have oxygen for it, no? And when you need something, when you need an oxidation reaction to happen, most of the time it produces carbon dioxide. So example, jogging ka or sprinting, no. So it needs time. You need to for it to produce oxygen. You need oxygen. You need ATP immediately when you're doing high level activity. Like example, sprinting, no. So you need to have ATP immediately. Your beta oxidation is not the best way to get that ATP, no. Um, it can help if the intensity of the activity is quite low and it's quite long. Example, mga marathon running, mga biking, naglagyo kayo. But if it's sprinting, short amount of time, you need to have lots of ATP. So usually your muscles have their own storage of ATP, and they also have their creatine, no? Your beta oxidation is for the longer sustained periods of activity. Because it needs to have oxygen, and it has a longer process, no, in comparison to your glycolysis and your glycolysis. So eventually there will be overlap between your glycolysis and your beta oxidation, especially when it comes to producing ATP. But let's start with your fatty acid fatty acid metabolism. The first step for your fatty acid metabolism is the oxidation rather, no, is the activation. Activation meaning it is now tagged. No, once it is now tagged, it is now noted to be it is now tagged and it's now noted to be included in the beta oxidation process, no, because free fatty acids, they're quite useless on their own, no. You need to mark them, you tag them or activate them so that they will be initiated or they will be used up in your beta oxidation. So in order for activation to happen, you need to make a thioester bond between a fatty acid and acetyl-CoA, no. So this is what it is. And you also need to add two phosphate groups, no. So ang point you need to activate the fatty acid, and the enzyme in charge for activating the fatty acid, no, is your acyl-CoA synthetase, no. And this enzyme needs ATP to work. So like in most things, the body, you need to put something in to get another thing, no. So in order to make ATP, you need to give ATP. So it's like in business, you need to put in capital so that you can get earnings. So the acyl-CoA synthetase needs ATP, and then after that, no, so this is within the cell, no, in the cytosol. No, this free fatty acid is in the cytosol. You need to transport that activated fatty acid towards the mitochondria, because the mitochondria, as we all know, is the powerhouse of the cell, and most of the oxidation reactions that pertain to ATP generation occurs in your mitochondria, no. So and for it to be transferred into the mitochondria, you need to have a carrier, and this is where your carnitine comes in, no. kita mo ng mga fit and right, no? They have what we call L-carnitine, no? So in theory, they can help in weight loss because there is an abundant supply of transport proteins toward the mitochondria, bringing the fatty acids. But don't be fooled, no? It's just a supplement. It's not the one that's gonna initiate your beta oxidation and using up of your fatty acid. It's just a carrier, no? So it's just a carrier, and it's all just marketing, no? It can help in some ways, but not as much as they hype it to be. So kato, like I said earlier, beta oxidation is the main pathway of catabolism. So here is your activated acyl-CoA. So these are the steps basically of your beta oxidation. As you can see, there is no such thing as ATP here. No, you can't see any direct ATP formation. No, in order for the fatty acid, the fat that you eat, no, to be converted into ATP, it's more of a secondary na process, not like your glycolysis na makakita jud kag ATP diretso. But the thing with your fatty acids is because you have lots of carbon that is already reduced, no? We'll talk about that later, but ang point na ko here, the beta oxidation in itself doesn't produce direct ATP, but its products, your NADH and FADH2, is produced, no? And they are now incorporated into your electron transport cycle, no? So kana dito sila go na siya sa electron transport, no? So your NADH and FADH2, and then that's where you're gonna get your ATP. That's your first source. And your second source of ATP is the production of acetyl-CoA, no? So your first source, remember, your production of your NADH and your FADH2, no? So where are they produced? Over here, no? And over here. That's your first step. And then your second source, no, of ATP production is your acetyl-CoA, which is now incorporated in your citric acid cycle and your oxidative phosphorylation. So, ano siya, dili directly makaproduce og ATP imuhang beta oxidation. But it's more of, it's producing another set of substances that will be further produced into ATP. And mind you, beta oxidation produces a lot of this NADH, FADH2, and your acetyl-CoA. So your yield for per molecule of fatty acid in comparison to a carbohydrate is leaps and bounds greater than that carbohydrate molecule, no? Which we will talk about later, no? So the reason why is, so the general point, no, if you want to oxidize to produce ATP, no, this is more of more of a concept, no? The more if you need lots of oxidation to produce ATP, like in your electron transport, no, etc., etc. But this is the concept, no, the principle. The more oxidized the compound, the less ATP it produces, no? So that's the reason why your carbohydrates are partly oxidized. Your carbohydrates are partly oxidized, and then your fatty acids naman is very reduced, or it is not oxidized. So meaning, if the reaction pertains to mag-oxidize siya before siya makaproduce og ATP, if reduced na kayo imong ang So, ang molecule, reduce na kayo siya imong raw material, you have more opportunities to oxidize. And if there is more opportunities to oxidize, then there is more ATP formation. But if the molecule, the substance, is already partly oxidized, then there are lesser avenues for oxidation, thus leading to an overall lower ATP yield. No? So, kana ang concept niya. So, going back, your lipids, your fatty acids, are all hydrocarbon except the carboxyl group. It's in a highly reduced state. No? Unlike your sugar, na partly oxidized na siya, meaning there are lesser things to oxidize. So, madunat sa atong electron transport chain, a more reduced fuel such as a fatty acid can be oxidized further than a partially oxidized fuel like carbohydrate, therefore leading to an increased ATP yield. Okay. Yes? So that's the concept, no? That's the concept. But in reality, of course, mas daghan kag FADH2 o NADH na maproduce sa imong beta oxidation. No. Okay. Awi pagod na Your stearic acid, daghan kay ka 120 ATP molecules imong makuha. So, what is the energy yield from the oxidation of fatty acids? Stearic acid, 18 carbon compound, 120. No? So, daghan jud kaayo siya. So, now we go on to ketone bodies. So, what are ketone bodies? If you are starving, no, starvation na jud ka, wala na jud kay carbohydrate intake. Tapos, wala kay carbohydrate intake. So, this is also the concept of your keto diet, no? What will happen is you will produce your ketones. These are your acetoacetyl, your beta-hydroxybutyric acid, no, or your beta-hydroxymethyl glutaryl CoA, also your acetoacetate, acetone. Kani sila ang imuhang ketone bodies dai, your acetoacetate, acetone, and your beta-hydroxybutyrate, no. So what will happen is your liver will produce these ketone bodies, no. So your ketone bodies, when there is a lot of acetoacetyl formation, especially in cases of excessive beta oxidation or fatty acid na metabolism due to wala na lagi kay carbohydrate na metabolism, no. In general, naga balance man gud na imong body, no. Sometimes if you deplete your glycogen dayon, if the glycogen is depleted, then your body will shift to a more of lipid metabolism so that your body has a time to regenerate your glycogen storage, no. So kana siya. But if persistent lang na lipid metabolism na, then you're gonna have a lot of acetoacetyl na formation, and this acetoacetyl, no, will be converted into your ketone bodies, no. So these are synthesized in your liver. So this occurs when there is overutilization of fatty acids when carbohydrates is limited. So like I said earlier, so kato, in comparison to your lipids, no, you need your you need your lipoproteins to carry around your mga triacylglyceride nimo, mga cholesterol. Your ketone bodies are somewhat water soluble, no, so they can freely pass through the plasma. And then these ketone bodies, your body can use them also to some degree. It can produce ATP, but not as much as your lipids, no, or sometimes not as much as your lipids or carbohydrates. So example, if glucose is absent, your muscles, no, can still use your acetoacetate. And then your brain can also use this acetoacetate, no, if glucose is absent. So they are not, the thing with ketones is they are not very efficient when you they're not very efficient in producing ATP. They're not very efficient as fuel. So that's why example, those doing keto diets, no, of course, ang keto diet no carbohydrate to very less carbohydrate lang. And then what they will eat is usually protein ug mga fat na mga food, no? So even though they eat fat, they convert a lot of that fatty acid into your acetoacetate, no, and your ketones. And that ketones, your body will shift from being dependent on glucose. Remember, glucose is a very important fuel because it's easily metabolized. You can easily harvest ATP from glucose. But the yield is not as much as kanang fatty acids, but it's really fast to get ATP from glucose. So if you have zero carbohydrates or glucose in your body tends to shift and use these ketones, excessive ketones. And once it uses these ketones, instead of utilizing your fat to make kanang to do beta oxidation, usually used up lang na gina-convert dayon na siya imong body ang fatty acids to ketones na lang diretso because like I said, beta oxidation is quite longer than your glycolysis. So I'm not saying that glycolysis imuhang ketones, they are on a different na pathway to be used to produce ATP, but their production of ATP is relatively shorter. That's why since wala kay glucose, nangita og new fast fuel imuhang body. And that's what ketones are, no? They're basically fast fuel na lipid derived, but they are not as kanang efficient. Problema ni ketones, magbaho imong ba, no? Bahog acetone imong ba, pati pud imong ihi because you have lots of ketones. So we also have a condition. I hope we're gonna talk about this in your third year, your diabetic ketoacidosis. So next is we have your essential fatty acids, no? So your essential fatty acid like linoleic acid is kanang, it's like vitamins ba, you can't get it from your body, can't synthesize it, that's why you need to get it from your kanang diet jud. So triacylglycerols, no, or also known as your kanang triacylglycerides. The glycerol triphosphate is a compound from glycolysis. So more or less, if you increase your glucose content, you produce lots of glycerol triphosphate, no, from glycolysis, and eventually that will form your triacylglycerides, no, and your triacylglycerides is what is seen in your adipose tissue. So eventually manambok jud ka, no, because you're providing lots of backbones for your fatty acids to make TAG. So next is your cholesterol biosynthesis, no. So cholesterol is very important. This is your stepwise formation of cholesterol. Cholesterol is very important because number one, it's a backbone it's a precursor for all your hormones. Some of your hormones, your steroid hormones. Your steroid hormones are the ones, example, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, they are your sex hormones, no? So they're very important, to say the least. And then cholesterol is very important also in the cell membrane, no? Because it gives rigidity. So vitamins A, E, and K, no? So vitamins, like I said earlier, are compounds, organic compounds, no, that are needed by your body to live, no? Basically to function. But the problem with vitamins is your body can't create it on its own. You need to ingest it from your diet. So vitamin A, E, and K is what we call your um, lipid soluble na vitamins. Meaning pag lipid soluble, um, they need to have carriers in the plasma, no? And then they are stored in your fat. That's why overdoses of vitamins A, E, and K are more common than your other water-soluble na mga vitamins like your vitamin C, because they tend to get stored in your fat, and it's very hard for them to be removed from the body. Unlike vitamin C, inom ka ng mag-megadose ka, ginaingon nila megadose na vitamin C, are just gonna piss that off, no? Unlike your vitamin A, E, and K, it's just gonna stay in your body until you use it eventually. This vitamin A, E, and K are somewhat, they have a similar structure with your cholesterol, no? So there's also vitamin D, which is a false vitamin. Why is it called a false vitamin? Because our body can create your vitamin D. That's what you call your cholecalciferol, no? And it's from cholesterol. So the production of your cholesterol, one enzyme, no, your HMG-CoA reductase over asa ba ito na here, this is where the HMG-CoA reductase works, is the slowest reaction. So the slowest reaction in any type of chemical reaction, no, is the rate limiting step, no? So HMG-CoA reductase is the rate limiting step of cholesterol synthesis. So we have lots of drugs, no, that tend to, mga statin nato, they tend to inhibit this HMG-CoA reductase to not produce cholesterol. Because remember, most of your cholesterol in your blood is produced by your own cells. It's not from the diet. But the problem is, if we eat lots of fat, daghan po mo hitaboon, mahimo na acetyl-CoA. Eventually, convert lang gyapon na into cholesterol. Okay? So, kana. And cholesterol is also a important precursor of steroid hormones. So, cholesterol, since it's what you call water insoluble, because it's hydrophobic, you need to package it in your lipoproteins, no? So the lipoproteins that are this is a lipoprotein, no? So it's a protein that houses your cholesterol inside, no? Because your cholesterol doesn't like water, and this protein wall, this phospholipid layer protects your cholesterol from the water because it doesn't like the water. So basically, we can differentiate these types of cholesterol based on their density. So the more cholesterol there is inside the lipoprotein, the less dense it is. Meaning, pag less dense, mulutaw siya, no? Pag mas gamay ang cholesterol inside, then mas daghan ang protein component, mas dense siya, mas lubog siya. So that's why your chylomicrons are the largest, because they're the ones that has the most amount of fatty acids and kinda cholesterol. They're the largest, but they're also the less dense, no? Next is your VLDL and your LDL. LDL is what you call your bad cholesterol, no? And HDL is what you call your good cholesterol, no? Because your LDL is the one that delivers cholesterol to the tissues, and your HDL takes mga free-flowing na mga cholesterol and brings it back to the kidney. Okay? That's why good imong cholesterol. HDL, it's good because it takes all the cholesterol and brings it home. So this is what we call your atherosclerosis. It's a condition when kanang matigulang ka matigulang ta og sige lang tagkaon og kanang lechon. Like I said earlier, the more fat you eat, the more easy acetyl CoA. Excuse me. The more acetyl CoA you produce. So what will happen is your LDLs will deliver cholesterol to your to your tissues. Eventually, pag daga na kay kag cholesterol, remember that fat in general is a pro-inflammatory, no? So eventually, ma-damage ni siya daga na kay kag kanang fat na deposit sa imong blood vessel. Eventually, macrophages will go there and try to limit the macrophages by the cholesterol deposition by actually eating them, no? Eventually, it's gonna be inflamed and you're gonna have atherosclerotic plaque, no? Remember that fat, in general, tends to attract calcium. So if there is free calcium here, it will tend to bind to the free fat there, making the deposition of katong cholesterol and fat be very hard. So that's what we call now your atherosclerotic. Athero, blood vessel. Sclerotic, meaning hard. No? Plaque, meaning it's just kana plaque siya. It's an atherosclerotic plaque. Eventually, pag ma-occlude na siya sa imong heart, wala na yung oxygen dito na area, it will undergo necrosis. So that's what we call your myocardial infarction, also known as your heart attack. That's why heart attack is prevalent nowadays because of the poor dietary choices. So next is your hormonal control of appetite. No, insulin and leptin are hormones, that are deeply involved in long-term eating behavior. So when you eat more, busog na ka, your body tends to remember that insulin is a hypoglycemic na hormone. So, if it senses there are lots of sugars na sa imong gikaon, sa imong diet, insulin tends to increase so that you get masulod na sa cells nimo ang glucose. So, and then at the same time, leptin is also produced pag busog na ka, and then it reaches your brain. And then it says that, wait, tama na. So your leptin is produced by your fat cells and your insulin is produced by your pancreas, your beta cells of your pancreas, no? On the other hand, we have ghrelin, no? Ghrelin is produced in an empty stomach. Ghrelin is nagapagutom nimo. So, one mnemonic that I try to remember is ghrelin or gutom na kay ko, no? So kato. So, high levels of leptin are interpreted as overfeeding. Kasi sila makakaon, sige naka-stimulate imong adipocytes, no? So, you produce lots of leptin. So, meaning, kasi sila makakaon, no? Your leptin says, tama, nakaon. It says to your brain, para ma-reduce imong appetite. But, ina-force man mo, so, sige lang po taas imong leptin. No? So, decreased levels of leptin, on the other hand, is starvation, no? Because your leptin is the one that says no to eating. So why would your body say no to eating if you're starved? Okay? And that is all. Thank you. So read the PowerPoint and read the topic sa book, no, in Campbell. I skipped lots of parts because it's because I don't think that I don't want to put emphasis on things that we will never discuss again, especially in your clinical chemistry and even in the boards. So I tried not to focus on stuff that are kanang padungag lang ganig burden in learning. So I want you to read this because most of the topics that I glossed over in the lesson it will be encountered again in clinical chemistry. So kato lang. So thank you guys and bye.